it's Mary Brownlee, licensed professional counselor. Today we're going to talk about the impact of religious abuse and complex PTSD. If you're like me, you might have grown up in a family that not only had childhood abuse and neglect, but also had religious trauma. And during the course of my, many years as a trauma therapist, I've treated quite a few clients with complex PTSD. And interestingly enough, a lot of them have religious abuse and trauma in their families of origins as well. So this adds an additional layer to the person who has CPTSD in terms of our purpose and meaning and like the afterlife and like why are we even here on this planet. So not only are we trauma survivors trying to find the answers to those questions, but then if you intersect it with abuse from religious people in our life, it adds a whole other really difficult dynamic in our healing process. So let's go ahead and get right into it. And I hope you really enjoy this. If you stick around till the end, I'll show you another amazing video of my adorable potbelly pig. So again, please like and subscribe to my channel. It really helps the YouTube algorithm push out my videos and for my channel to grow. So if you can watch the entire video, even better, because that really helps that algorithm. So I appreciate all of your support, and let's get right into it. So what is religious abuse? All right, so religious abuse is any time someone uses their own religious or spiritual beliefs to excessively guilt and shame other people. It's a form of control. They create an us versus them mentality, so there's a lot of judgment and shame, and they discourage independent thought. They don't want people to think too deeply about other faiths or other options or other choices. They really discourage people thinking for themselves. And they also force individuals to participate in religious practice even if they don't want to. And another big factor is using sin, or the idea of sin, to control children's behavior, other people's behavior, and a fear of damnation or hell, instead of, say, healthy and appropriate child discipline. Additional ways that religion can be used abusively is anytime someone justifies physical abuse or discipline, especially if excessive physical discipline, spanking that is not just, a quick tap on the behind, for example, like repeatedly striking children, and physically striking them, say, for example, on the face, or leaving bruises or marks, and justifying it with their religious beliefs, like spare the rod, spoil the child type of mentality. Also, withholding proper medical care due to religious beliefs, not allowing children to express healthy and appropriate emotions, shaming individuals who hold different beliefs, and punishing or shaming those who do not adhere to strict gender roles. So you'll see a lot of these dynamics in religious abuse. A common way that people who are highly religious abuse others is through the FOG technique, and that stands for fear, obligation, and guilt. And this is well known in the trauma therapy field as being a form of emotional and psychological abuse and manipulation. So anytime somebody is attempting to control another human being, you'll see these dynamics of instilling fear, instilling shame, instilling guilt and obligation, and essentially, this ruins the person's self-worth and identity and healthy self-development over time. So let's talk about what healthy religious or spiritual beliefs should look like. Healthy religious expression should instill hope and compassion and caring and a sense of connection to other people. It's uplifting, it's kind, it's loving, it's healing, right? It's not damaging other individuals. It's bringing them together. It's showing them everything they have in common with one another. And it's very uplifting and hopeful and kind. So what types of damage do we see when somebody has been abused by a religious person or organization? What you'll see is people really struggling with their self-worth and identity. They will commonly have depression and complex post-traumatic stress disorder. It can also contribute to people struggling with their sexuality. They can have sexual dysfunction and shame around their sexual expression or their identity. It also can cause a loss of faith in God or a higher power. Many people leave religion altogether because it damages their ability to believe in something greater than themselves. It can destroy their meaning and purpose in life. It also contributes to difficulty expressing healthy emotions. And it can also cause a sense of isolation, lacking community. A lot of times if we leave our religious organizations, we also leave our communities. So how does one heal from religious trauma? My best advice would be to find yourself a really good trauma-informed therapist. They're going to be very well equipped to understand the type of damage that this type of abuse can do and to help you heal. And really, it's all about helping you, the client, find a new sense of purpose and meaning that makes sense for you. So they're not going to be controlling you. They're not going to be telling you what to think or feel. It's all about helping you trust yourself again. All right, so religious abuse and trauma is a whole other layer that adds an additional complexity to complex PTSD survivors. So this is really where an adult or caregiver, or perhaps it's a teacher or some other adult that has quite a bit of influence over a child, uses their own spiritual abuse to really harm and control and humiliate a child. Religious beliefs in and of themselves, they don't have a problem with, but when they're used to really prevent independent thought, to prevent a child from curiosity about the world and how it works, and when they're used really to shame and control and guilt a child into behaving a specific way or wearing certain clothing or not being exposed to whatever the parent has a problem with, etc., where it's like overtly controlling is really when it can do damage. But more so when there's a lot of concepts involving like sin and shame and feelings of, this installs in children like you are less than unless you are perfect, and that you are inherently a terrible person and you must watch yourself at all time or you're going to burn in the fires of hell, for example. So where it really instills like terror and fear in children, then it becomes abusive. It's no longer about support and hope and love and compassion. Those things are really, when religion is done well or spiritual beliefs are done well, they have those aspects. But when they're not done well, they're really harmful. And, complex PTSD survivors already have a hard time with identity formation and self-worth. And we already blame ourselves for any and everything. And we carry such wounds of like unworthiness and shame. And that's just regular complex PTSD, that stems from abusive childhood experiences. So then you add the additional layer of religious abuse and religious messages that are incredibly controlling and coercive and harmful. And you add a whole other layer to the very poopy cake, shall we say. It's not like a delicious cake, it's a cake of poop. I would say another word, but I don't want YouTube to ding me. But you get the picture. So it's a very poopy layer cake, and nobody wants a cake full of poop. Yeah. So I grew up in a very religious family, and my parents definitely valued religion, but then ironically, they're abusing or having abusive behaviors to my siblings and I. So some of the abusive behaviors, for example, were shaming us, for example, excessive control over like what I wore and what I watched and who I was allowed to play with, for example, shaming dynamics around womanhood and femininity and, bodies, for example. So lots of terrible messages around sex and sexuality, and also messages related to femininity and gender roles as well. I definitely grew up with messages related to motherhood in terms of you really are only of value as a woman if you're a mother. And outside of that, you don't really have any value. And so you can see how if somebody with complex PTSD, like regular typical abuse and trauma that's going on in childhood, and you combine it with the religious layer, it becomes an additional poopy layer that only adds additional trauma to our poor brains and our identities and our understanding of ourselves. And more importantly, the understanding of the world and like why we're here as human beings, the afterlife, purpose and meaning. All of that gets screwed up by religious abuse and trauma. So yeah, it's not a good layer to add in to children who are already undergoing tremendous stress just from, the violence they might be experiencing, or the shaming and screaming and verbal abuse and emotional abuse and manipulation and guilt tripping and all of that. And let me just say that children are very, very aware when parents are not only abusive, but they pretend to have, I say pretend because they're not really, authentically following their religious tenets if they're being abusive. I'm pretty sure a loving God would not be okay with abuse. But yeah, children are very aware if parents are abusive and pretending to have holy and religious beliefs. We're not dumb as kids, and we're pretty bright, and we can see hypocrisy when we notice it. And so this is where it can really damage our ability to grow healthy, nurturing relationships with the higher power or a sense of spirituality. The adult figures around us are hypocrites. They're abusing us and shaming us and criticizing us, and even the violence, for example, that might be going on, or sexual abuse that might be going on. That's the antithesis or opposite of what a lot of religious values actually teach. And so it damages our ability deeply to believe in a higher power and to have a sense of faith and to believe that we're on this planet for a reason. So that is something I see very, very commonly in a lot of my clients who go through religious abuse and trauma in addition to regular childhood trauma. And as a side note, I can remember I went to a Catholic school my entire, kindergarten through 8th grade, but also through high school. But some of my most abusive experiences were in my grade school. And for example, I had an 8th grade teacher that literally would grab children by their shirt collars and throw them over desks. And that was allowed. That was actually not only allowed, but I can remember my mother being proud that we were attending this school and that this specific teacher was our teacher. She really looked up to this nun and really thought she was an amazing, tough person and was going to just shape the children right up, and that the children deserved whatever they got. It was like, what did you do wrong? You must have done something wrong, and you had that coming to you. So there was that sort of mentality. So not only did this abusive nun throw people over desks, but she would throw like erasers and chalk at our heads. I remember her humiliating and shaming me in front of the entire class because I got a word wrong. I was supposed to remember the definition and I didn't. And she made me go up to the front of the classroom and write the word 50 separate times on the chalkboard. And then the next day she asked me again. And of course I was now terrified and humiliated and my brain went blank. And guess who had to go to the chalkboard again and write it another 50 times? So that is just a very small fraction of some of the abusive experiences that I went through as a child. And needless to say, it damaged my ability to have any type of religious or spiritual beliefs for a long time. I'm definitely not religious anymore, but I have been able to maintain, or I should say, grow a sense of spirituality outside of organized religion. And that's what a lot of survivors do as well, is that we end up exploring other spiritual beliefs outside of organized religion. And we find a home there and we find safety there. And for me, nature is by far the place that I feel the safest in, that I feel accepted. Nature just meets you right where you're at, right? She's not judging you. She's not shaming you. She's not controlling you. She meets you right where you're at. And there's such a beautiful energy associated with nature. So that's really where I feel closest to a higher power. So yeah, a lot of my clients, similar. experiences as me and similar trajectory where they're not really, they don't have a strong belief in that organized religion anymore, with good reason. You know, it's hard to believe in organized religion when you see a lot of the harm that comes out of it. So yeah, if you have similar experiences, feel free to drop a comment. I'd love to hear your experiences with any of the types of things that I've talked about today. The good news is we're not stuck without any type of, you know, belief in something that is meaningful on this planet. Like we can repair damage that's been done, especially in therapy and with a good trauma therapist. You can kind of find that sense of self again. Again, IFS is my favorite modality for treating complex trauma and spiritual and religious abuse as well. We can learn to love ourselves, and we can learn to feel compassion, not only for ourselves, but other people who are suffering as well. And to me, that's a much more organic way of putting beautiful energy out into the world and being of service to this planet, because there really is so much suffering on this planet. And shaming and criticizing and controlling and humiliating other human beings and putting them into categories of you are right and you are wrong and you over there are going to burn in the fires of hell forever. Yeah, not my cup of tea, and quite frankly, it damages people. It makes people further apart. You know, how many wars have been fought over religion, for goodness sake. So yeah, it's definitely a difficult topic for sure. There's a lot of nuances to this, and I really have only brushed the surface, I think, in a minor way. I may come back to this topic and talk more about how to build or rebuild a sense of purpose and meaning after you perhaps have experienced this type of abuse. But for now, I just wanted to stick to kind of a general overview and also give you hope that this can get better too, because it can. And I can definitely tell you, I don't hate myself anymore, and I do deeply have a sense of an afterlife, or hope for an afterlife, and a sense of a higher power, minus the organized religion. So in that way, shape, and form, you know, healing is not out of our reach, thank goodness. So I hope you found this video helpful. Again, please leave a like, subscribe. If you've watched this video all the way to the end, I so appreciate you. You're really helping the YouTube algorithm grow my channel a little bit quicker. So I look forward to seeing you guys all in the next video, and take care.